Well, this is the 40th CALLERLAB convention in Cary, North Carolina. Today is Tuesday, March 26th, and this is the Tech Marketing Panel. My name is Brian Jarvis. I'm from Washington, D.C. I am a Unix and network engineer for the past nearly 30 years or so. So I have some experience with the internet, a wee bit. And joining me on the panel today is Ms. Chris Jensen, all the way up from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay, hi Brian. So we're here today to talk about using current computer technology, and not computers obviously, but the internet for marketing purposes. And my background is I did computer stuff, and I was into it very early, which is why I think they put me on this panel. I have not kept up as much because I'm old, and but I had a blog back in the mid-90s when blogs were kind of new and exciting, and that was an interesting thing back then. But what I'd like to talk about today is when you're thinking about using computers and the internet for your marketing, I like to think of the overall picture of what you're trying to do. And I see two big areas. One is to use the technology to strengthen and build the social bonds in your own groups. All right, so this is, for example, having a newsletter for your clubs that you mail out to them, having a website for your clubs that they can get information from and that allows them to keep up with what's going on with club activities. Using technology to, again, build those social bonds in your club. Using a news group, not just a newsletter, but a mailing list or a news group of some sort to allow your club members to communicate with each other. So and those types of things work not only for one-to-many communication, where our club caller will send out a notice saying, well, the weather's bad and we're canceling tonight, but it also works for club members to talk amongst themselves and let people know about other things that they're doing. And all of these things, I think, can be used very effectively to build the social cohesion of your group. The other thing to think about with technology is how to market to non-square dancers to get them into your groups. And that, I think, is a whole different thing. And that would involve having a web presence. So your website could serve two purposes. One is to let people know from the outside about your club and about what you offer. And the other is, of course, for your club members to use. And not just marketing square dancing, but marketing yourself to outside groups. So if you have a personal website that you're using to sell yourself to for one-night parties, for example, to other square dance groups around the country to say, hey, I'm here, you can hire me, and that kind of thing. So those are all things to keep in mind as you decide what kind of site to have and how to present yourself. There are a lot of sort of details, and I think Brian will be getting into that, but things to keep in mind, which I've seen in some websites, of not having an area code with your phone number, not sort of even giving the state that you're in on your website, because of course, hey, I'm here in Cary, everybody knows it's in North Carolina. So things like that. So keep in mind that once it's on the web, it's accessible to everybody all over the country, and somebody Googling something could very easily come up against your website and then be looking for information, and you need to give them the whole picture of where you are and what you're doing. And and things like that. There are a lot of tools that you can use to do these various things. Building websites is something where you can use very professional tools online. There are various services where you pay a monthly fee and they will provide you with all the tools to build a really effective website. Or you can start from scratch and do it yourself. I don't think expense is any longer really an issue. Most ISPs provide a certain amount of free web space. I personally think it's a good idea to get your own domain name, just because you will be able to keep that forever as long as you pay your monthly or your yearly fee, which is anything from, say, I think $9 to $15 or something like that. It should be under $15 to get a domain name. It's like, why not? I got chrisjensen.com a number of years ago. It was actually used the first time I looked for it, and then I looked for it another time and was able to get it. So even if I'm not using it, I also have Squares, SQUAREZ.com, and that was when I first started my blog and I was being cute and thought, oh well, everybody is adding girls and squares and such. So I got that, and I've kept that, and that's my primary email address. But the advantage of having your own domain name is that you can change ISPs and have your email forwarded to that ISP. You can also, and you never have to change your domain name or your email address. You can also set up a web page on a free site using free web space from your ISP, and then have all the references to squares.com forwarded to that space, so that you have your own domain name, and even if you changed where you're putting your stuff to a different location, it will always go there. Am I using Greek? Are people familiar with when I say ISP, when I say URL, when I say domain name? Any questions about that? Okay, good. All right.
If you're too embarrassed to say, no, I don't know what those terms are, talk to us during the break. We'd be happy to explain.
Right.
Well, you might want to put it out anyway because this is being recorded.
All right, so the comment was that we might want to give a little bit of background because of the recording. ISP is Internet Service Provider. That's who gives you your link from your home to the Internet. Mine is, for example, Quest, because I use DSL. You may use...
I use Verizon Fios.
Lucky guy. It's not available in Albuquerque. And so they're the ones who provide you with the link from your house to the Internet. A domain name, of course, is an address on the Internet. Their top-level domains are .com, .org. If you look on Brian's sheet, he's got an address at about.me, so ME is a top-level domain. The common one, and the one that I think people still recommend getting, is .com, because if you type something into your, at least in my browser, and I leave off the top-level domain, they assume it's .com, and look for that. 2 sheets there. Okay. Right. And let's see, so we did, so a URL then is a domain name attached to a top-level domain. Okay. So, and then you can have a Facebook presence, which we'll talk about. I think setting up a website is important and relatively easy. There are tools that you can use both on your computer and online to do that. Recently, a member of the president of our Albuquerque Square Dance Association, I had set up a fairly simple website for the Square Dance Association, and then I was no longer on the board, and she took it over to keep it updated. And she used a free website online, and so there's a little bit of advertising on it, but it looks very nice. And again, we have the top level domain, the domain name asdc.org, and it just points to this website, and it has video on it and some pretty graphics, and she's also linked to Google Calendar, so the Square Dance Center keeps its calendar on Google Calendar, and then that shows up on our website. And that's a useful feature for people coming to the website. I had done a different thing and used a iCal type of thing that I had to keep syncing up, and that was less convenient. So moving it to a Google Calendar was a good thing. So as technology changes, and that's another lesson to keep in mind, things change and things can get easier. So while I had set up an iCal and then syncing it up to the website, and then I had some software that would read the database and put up a calendar, now by doing it in Google Calendar, it's just there. All you have to do is add a little widget to the website and the calendar is there. So there are lots of opportunities. I have some other lists here of things that you can use. Social networking, which we'll talk about, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest. I don't know what the latest network du jour, social network du jour is. One of the things that we've talked about in the past, and that's kind of an interesting thing, is what you can do with telecommunication and using Skype for things. I've heard about a caller actually trying to call over Skype to a basement group. I think Miriam is shaking her head. Clark Baker did that. And he was able to call to a group far away. They couldn't bring him in to call, but he was doing live calling for the group. And there are a few issues, timing issues and such, but it can work. You can set up two-way video, so the dancers can see the caller can see the dancers, and the caller can call. That's something to look into. A number of years ago, somebody was trying to set up a global square dance, and the technology just really wasn't ready for it at the time. But they wanted to have callers all over the world, dancers all over the world, everybody with a two-way video feed, and being able to dance all at the same time to the same caller. And it was a neat idea. It never went anywhere, but they researched it and decided it wasn't feasible at the time. 2 years from now, even next year, it could work, and it might be a really fabulous thing to have square dancing with people all over the world. One of the things that you might look into as a club, using technology again to help yourself and your dancers, is to get a Google Voice number or some other phone number of that type, where I have one, and I can give it out, and it rings both my cell phone and my home phone. The advantage for a club is that you could keep the same number regardless of who's president or who's going to take phone calls, and then have that number forwarded, and you can change it on the fly, have it forwarded to whoever's going to take phone calls. So look into the tools that are available online, not just for publicity, but for helping yourself manage your club. And then, let's see, I'm not going to really talk about hardware. I think in the past that's been interesting, and I think there are things happening with hardware. It's interesting. One thing that you might consider for a party, and we've used this in the past with my club, is digital projectors are getting less and less expensive, and some people even have them at home for their home audio-video setups. We have brought a video projector to our Square Dance Center and just projected up on a wall pictures. People love to look at pictures, and so for a party we had the past 30 years of the Wild Bunch, and which is the club, and we'd put together a bunch of pictures from the 30-year history, and you project it up on the wall. Again, that's a team building or a social cohesion type of thing using technology for your clubs. And so there are all kinds of things that you can do, and keeping up with the internet can be a full-time job, I think. But lots of things. Another kind of working tool would be using Google Documents for things that you're working with your club, and you want to have group collaboration, but don't want to have a meeting right away. Put up a Google document where people can write their ideas and share them and communicate that way. And it can be a collaborative writing process for a flyer, a newsletter, that kind of thing. I have a question over here.
Michael Fetting with Anger. Is that the same as Dropbox that I've been hearing?
No. Okay. Dropbox is an online storage space that does syncing up between various computers. And it also allows you to put documents online and give other people access to them. So I use Dropbox for syncing up. For example, I put my paper documents on here for CALLERLAB into my Dropbox on my home computer, and then I can have them here on my iPad. And so it's just a syncing. I also keep my laptop and my desktop documents that I want to have on both. I keep them in sync. So as soon as I change something on my home computer, that's automatically synced to the cloud. And then when I get on my laptop, it's automatically synced to my laptop. And there are other services besides Dropbox that do that. Dropbox is a standard, a big name.
I use Google Drive. Same thing.
Same thing. And so, but Google Documents is where you can actually have for example, a word processing document that's stored on the cloud. And when I'm typing into it, if somebody else has that document open, it's being updated in real time in front of them. And so you can work collaboratively on a document. So these are all tools. Again, it's using the internet and using the tools that are available. There are tools that just provide like a shared list. And sometimes that can be really helpful. If you want to make a list of everybody that you want to remind about a club event or something like that. Or we're using it for remembering people who are in the club so that we could invite them to the 30th anniversary party. And so here's a list that everybody can access and can add to at any time. Why not? It's online. You no longer are constrained by sending emails back and forth saying, here's the list, now let's add to it. Now we have to keep track of which email is the most up-to-date email. Or we all have copies of the same document on our computer and we're sending them by email back and forth, and we have to keep track of which is the most recent document, which is the most recent version. That's the advantage of all these online tools. So, boy, noisy next door. So I like these kinds of things, and I think they're really interesting. I'm going to turn it back over to Brian to talk about marketing.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Okay. I presume everybody in this session muted their mobile phones and iPads, et cetera, et cetera?
Certainly not.
This is the one session where it's perfectly acceptable to not mute your phone. Feel free. Whenever I hear a mobile phone ringing belongs to a Square Dance caller, I'm thinking that's the sound of success. Somebody is calling a caller. That means the marketing's working. So I'd like this half of the room to dial this other half of the room and vice versa, because it makes me feel good.
Can I just text message?
That works. How many people actually have their mobile phones here? Cool. That's more than half. How many people have been updating home base, their website, their Facebook page, Twitter, that they're actually here at this convention? 4 hands. How many about this session? Oh, no. Alrighty, then I guess you've come to the right place. I'm an avid tweeter. Does that make me a twit? Yeah, what the heck. I like to keep updating Twitter a great deal about what I'm doing, particularly where square dance calling is involved. Why? Because a large portion of my friends don't even know, or did not know, that square dancing still exists. A few of them never knew that square dancing ever existed, period. Well, now they do. A handful of them are quite aware of it. They're avid square dancers. They didn't know that I was calling. Really? How did they miss that? And a smaller percentage of them didn't know I was coming to CALLERLAB. Well, how could they not know that? Well, I'm updating Twitter. I'm updating Facebook. I update my web page regularly. I want to make sure that my square dancers know that square dancing is alive and well. I want my friends and family who are not square dancers to know that square dancing is alive and well. I want them to be aware that square dancing exists. I want them to know that it's happening in their area. I want them to know about our clubs. I want them to know that I'm available to call for them. And I want them to know that I'm upgrading my skills by coming to conventions like this and by talking to people here. It's important to keep in touch with people, to keep square dancing at the top of their mind. So think about it for a moment. How many people know that you're here? Is it because we didn't tell them? Oops, that was a marketing failure. That was a lapse, but that's something we can fix. Twitter is a great way of doing it. I also use Facebook a great deal. Well, why Facebook? It's easy to use. It's got a nice interface. My grandmother is on Facebook. My parents, unfortunately, are also on Facebook. If that's not the sign of the apocalypse, I don't know what is. But Facebook has 1.06 billion users worldwide. That's a huge population. The U.S. population as of last year was what, 315 million? Yeah, it's a huge population. It's available to you. You think, well, not all those accounts are active. Well, true, but 680 million of those people are mobile users. 42 million pages. 9 million people per hour are checking in on Facebook in a given time. You want them to know about square dancing. They don't know it yet, but they want to know about square dancing. You don't want to deny them that opportunity. Twitter has 500 million users. That's a huge population. YouTube, 800 million users, 4 billion views per day. Imagine if you could get a video of your square dance performance up on YouTube and got even a fraction of that viewership. And it's all for free. I love that word, free. It's my second favorite word in the whole language, next to chocolate. There's other ones we talk about. Instagram, if you just have photos. That's 90 million users, 4 billion photos. So if getting good video is hard. Getting a few good photographs, though, of your square dance club dancing, having a good time, that should be pretty easy. Couple photos taken per week, not a problem. So there's great opportunities. You just have to do a little planning in advance. What are you trying to market? One might be an awareness of square dancing. The fact that we are actually still dancing. It exists. That's a good thing. We want people to know. Websites are a good place to start because many people, if they are curious or they've heard this word, they've seen a sign, they've heard somebody else mention, overheard a conversation on a subway train or a bus about square dancing, and if they go to Google, they're going to go looking for something, and a web page will tell them, give them their first impression. It'd be really nice if it was a good first impression. So a web page, easy place to start. If a web page is a little problematic, okay, try working with Facebook first. That could be a poor man's web page. That's perfectly fine. The point is to get something out there. Now that would help with the awareness of square dancing. Now you've got a different problem if you want to have an awareness of your club. That's a slightly more narrow focus. As Chris mentioned, it's important to have the city, the state, your country, your area code all included there, your zip code as well. Because those are all terms that the search engines will understand. So when you go to Google and you search for square dancing, it will help the user with relevancy rankings. And it will try to provide something closer to your query that matches your location. They're very good about that. The search engines have gotten very clever the past number of years. Perhaps you're marketing your particular event. That's a different kind of problem, but that's okay. Again, the same techniques can be used. We could have a Facebook page for a club. You can have a Facebook fan page for yourself. You can have a Facebook event page for a particular event, like a new class, or an open house, or a festival. There's many, many options. Then, of course, there's your personal, as a caller, your personal marketing page, marketing your services and what you can do as an entertainer for other people. And you have to be very careful then about what is it exactly that you want to market. And of course, the old rules of marketing still work. You still need to do a little bit of research. What is it that I am truly offering? Am I a square dance caller? Kind of narrow. Am I an entertainer? Do people go, are the people that you want to have in your square dance events, do you want them brought in because, say, your specialty might be providing physical activities in senior centers? The perfectly valid market. If that's your thing, go with that. But if that is not your thing, perhaps emphasizing the physical exercise aspect isn't what you want. Perhaps you are calling in an urban environment and you want to emphasize youthful, high energy, high intensity music. Could be a useful market. You might have a separate page for every one of these if you have several different service offerings. You have to think about what it is you're marketing and why. Any questions thus far? Good, I will ramble on. The old rules of marketing still work. High-tech social marketing is not a substitute for the old methods. You do not get rid of your telephone number just because you have an email address. I don't recommend stopping with flyers and mailings just because you have a web page. People communicate in different forms. The youthful portion, say the under 30 crowd, does not use telephones for voice these days. Text messages are primarily it. Or they're using it, I'm up well above the 30 crowd, but I use my mobile phone very seldomly for voice. I use it extensively for web browsing. Or I use my phone as a hotspot to use my laptop or my tablet for web searches. I use the web a great deal. So web searching, that's my thing. I use Facebook a great deal, so will the younger crowd. But websites, if you're looking for senior citizens, then it'll help. But not every senior is on the internet or cares to be. So you still have to take a multi-pronged approach. High-tech is not a panacea. It's one more tool in your arsenal. Don't give up the old ones yet.
Dennis Clark from Indianapolis, Indiana. I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned event page in Facebook. Would that include something like lessons or a club, things of that nature? And do you see that in place of something like Facebook ads, or included in Facebook ads? And what do you think of Facebook ads or Google ads?
I use Facebook events, event pages, fairly regularly for broadcasting and advertising larger events to the greater public. For example, a festival or a new class, something like that. I never call it a class. New dancer series.
How would people on Facebook find that event page for example, a new class?
I would create the event page. There's a little button up on the screen that allows you to invite your friends. And I invite I wouldn't say every one of my friends, because I know if I'm offering a new square dance class, my grandmother in Northern Ontario will probably not be attending my class in Washington, D.C. So I try to be a little sensible about inviting my particular friends. But that's where I start. You can also share that event to your personal timeline. You can share that event to your club's page. You can take that link and you can advertise that link elsewhere. So if you have a web page somewhere else, your own fan page, some other mechanism, you could take that link and you can include it, say, in your Twitter feed, saying, by the way, new dancer series upcoming. Click here for more info. Boom, takes them back to the event page.
Okay, that's
Facebook.
reaching people who know you, people who know people who know you.
Yes.
But what about somebody who doesn't know you at all? How do you outreach to people who aren't connected with you in the slightest?
Harder to do, but not impossible. There was a mention of, say, what do they call it? Facebook AdWords and Google AdWords. I have not personally used those. There was a recent paper I had read that actually indicated that Facebook ads were not as effective as even Facebook would like to say they are. So I have yet to hear of a solid success story using either Google AdWords or Facebook paid advertising. That said, I don't know too many people who have actually tried a real world experiment with it. Personally,
Okay.
I have not tried such.
Miriam.
Miriam Baker, Belmont, Massachusetts. In our area, we have something that's not exactly what we're talking about here, but I think it's a lesson we can learn. In our contra dance community, we have an active high school and college age group of dancers, and they have a Facebook page. And what they'll do is a couple of them will decide that they want to go to a particular dance on Saturday night. And so they will create a Facebook event, and they will all invite all of their friends and publicize it on Facebook. And suddenly you've got 20, 30, 40 young people going to a particular contra dance. And, and it just spreads like wildfire. And these young people all have lots and lots and lots of friends on Facebook. So if we could somehow get that kind of chain reaction going within square dancing. And I have a college-age, now graduate school-age daughter who is a square dancer. And so, so she posts something about going to National Square Dance Convention with her friends. And her other friends who know her as a special education teacher say, "You square dance?" That's exactly the kind of publicity that square dancing needs.
Even before the age of internet, did you ever notice in your club that there was always one or two people that just had that magic touch to recruit? They managed to get all of their friends in. There was a mention at the Rainmaker session, I think it was yesterday, that one particular woman had corralled like 40 couples over the years into her particular club because she was a nexus, if you will, a center point of this big social network. She had draw. That was in the age before the internet. Now we have the internet, and it's easier to follow those little tracks of who has connections to whom. And it's great because you have, for the asking, not only your circle of friends, but their friends beyond. So it's perfectly legitimate to invite your friends, yes, and then ask your friends to please share this as well on their timelines. It's a multiplier effect. So I can send out a posting that will go to the 800 friends on my Facebook circle. And I think I did the total once to see how many other unique hits I could theoretically get off of the outer ring if all of my friends forwarded. And it exceeded 18,000 people. That was just 2 degrees of separation. We can actually get a pretty far reach just by asking and using these free services.
Michael Fetting, the Anger. I'm rather reluctant to ask this question because I'm thinking it's more of a Facebook issue, but maybe you have ran into this. I created my page, it's Anger Twirlers. I have invited the friends, and lo and behold, after a while, they're coming. Even though they've already accepted, I said, it comes back and says, invite these friends all over again instead of fresh new ones. So that's why I was more concerned. Am I doing this right on my Facebook side? And the other thing is, I can't seem to observe the page as an outsider. It always comes in as I'm the administrator. And I want to see it on the user's perspective to see if my postings are being met. In other words, I feel like I'm missing something when I created this page, and that's why I wanted to know if I went about it correctly.
Facebook is a moving target. They change their structure every few months, and it's a bit of a pain. It sounds like you've done is set up a Facebook page for the organization as though it were just a user. Now they've got separate categories so that you can set up a Facebook page as an organization with shared administration, or set up a Facebook page as a fan page, which I've got a handout up here of how you can set that up, and set up things like event pages and so on. One possible way to scoot around that is, and I've done this myself a couple of times, I create a fake page as a regular user so that I can, if I'm ever curious, I've set up this organizational page, what does it really look like to Joe Blow way out there? Instead of Facebook trying to show me, well, here, you're an administrator, here, helpfully, is all the administration stuff. It's like, that's not what I'm looking for. I can log in as my fake user and see what it actually looks like to the general public. One way around it. My email address, contact information is on the flyers. Yep. Feel free.
Alan Riggs from Centennial, Colorado. On my personal Facebook page, I have another page, a fan page, for another business. And in order to find out what either one of those looks like to the outside person, at the top in the toolbar, there are two different click points, I would say. On the left-hand side is the what it looks like as an administrator. On the right-hand side, where your name is or the page is, you can click on that and it'll bring it up as somebody else would see it. And they're very different.
Yeah, I use the little sprocket symbol, the icon that's up in the upper right, so I can pull down and log in as a particular person. So there's Brian Jarvis Square Dance Caller, where I put all my Square Dance stuff, and there's Brian Jarvis, the user, where I put all the cat pictures.
Scott Byers, Sacramento, California. I'm interested in setting up, although I have not been able to do this, I want to set up a fan page for my wife and myself and have dual administration. I have not been able to succeed at that yet. Is there a way to do dual administration for that?
Yes, that's one of the joys of actually having a fan page or a organizational page. You can share administration. It doesn't have to be exclusively to you. You can delegate options. In fact, there's a handout on creating a Facebook fan page, and actually sharing administration, I believe, was one of the steps towards the bottom where to find that. But you can delegate away, so you can create say a fan book page and then delegate authority to your spouse to look after various things or other trusted contacts in your club. You don't particularly want it personally attached exclusively to you all the time. If you're out of touch, you're too busy, you're on the road, whatever, you don't want your pages to go stale. Things still have to look fresh. This is one of my my gripes about many web pages. They're very extensive. They've got great photographs. They've got a great calendar listing that goes up to December of 2009. That's great in 2009, but it's clear then that this page has been abandoned. And then you have to wonder, well, what kind of impression does that give to naive users? Is the page merely abandoned, or square dancing is dead in their region? Don't want to give that impression. So it's important to keep up, even if you can't keep it constantly up to date with the latest and greatest, please at least take down the old stuff that's clearly dated so that it looks still like there's something going on here, a work in progress.
Right, and there are tools that you can use when you set up a web page. If you use a system like WordPress, for example, there are modules where you can actually, everything you tweet can show up on your web page. Everything you post to Facebook could show up on your web page also. And so that can all just be automated, where you don't really have to do anything, but your web page is being updated.
And I like the idea of delegating. Delegation is always a fun thing. You get everything set up, you got your wish list, but if you're too busy to look after it, fine. Got a niece or nephew who's keen on this kind of thing, has some skills with it, feel free to give them the task if they're willing to take it on. Got a friend in the club who's kind of oriented towards technology, who'd be willing to take it on? Great. Delegate away. It doesn't have to be by you. Any other questions thus far? Has anybody here actually used Twitter? Handful. Twitter's tougher. How many people know what Twitter is? Okay, most of us, yeah. For a handful that don't, it's a particular service. It's a series of accounts where you can send a particular message no more than, say, 140 characters. Just a quick message of what you might be doing at this particular moment. The little message is called a tweet. And people can subscribe to your Twitter feed. So when they log in, they will see all the in chronological order, newest to oldest, of the tweets that have been posted by the people that they're following. It's being used by a lot of agencies these days. There's a recent snowstorm up in the Midwest and through the greater DC area just yesterday and the day before. So I was looking at my Twitter feed and I saw road conditions, I saw school closures, and other fun things that would have been very relevant to me if I was still back in DC at this particular moment. I use it to keep posting of when I have square dance events coming up. As a reminder to anybody reading Twitter that I've got a club night tonight, or I've got one for tomorrow, or I've got a workshop coming up on Saturday, or I'm doing a demo for such and such a location. Hey, could use some extra experienced dancers to make this look really good. Show up at such and such a time. It's more real-time stuff. And the messages are meant to be somewhat transient. So you're posting something that's going to be relevant for 1 or 2 days and probably fades off. That's okay. Facebook is going to be more about posting things like photographs, activities, again, latest, newest stuff to oldest. And again, you're posting things about you're doing now or soon. And they've got what they call timelines. So you can see things that have gone on in the past. You can see a whole chronography of things that have gone on. Useful stuff. Web page is longer duration. This is what I've got coming up in the next several months, as well as perhaps history of what I've had the past several months in the past. You're showing a greater continuum of your portfolio of work. No blank stares yet. Further down the rabbit hole? Okay.
So one could use Twitter possibly as, if we all put the square dance hashtag, so if we all did hashtag square dance on our tweets, you could then, without even being subscribed to somebody, you could see everything that people were posting that was related to square dance.
Yeah, on Twitter, a hashtag is that a hash symbol or pound symbol or octothorpe, more precisely, the hashtag, and then a word. It becomes a searchable term. So I've been using for this event hashtag CALLERLAB. So if one were to do a search on Twitter for all things CALLERLAB, my tweets are floating up to the top about which panels I've gone to, my thoughts on each, maybe a photograph of this, oh my God, fantastic chocolate cake I had at lunch yesterday. Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't have to be purely square dance, showing the whole human experience here of dancing and chocolate, and I'm sure there's really, is there anything else to life than chocolate and square dancing?
Not as far as I'm concerned.
None that matter, okay.
Danced that off last night.
Bingo. Okay, yes, Scott points out ice cream. There is ice cream involved. Okay, fine. But that's how we use hashtags. It's a search mechanism. So yeah, I use square dance, hashtag square dance, a great deal. So that if people happen to be in the greater DC area or they subscribe to my stuff and they want to do a quick search for square dance, geographically limited, boom, my stuff is drifting up to the top. Trending, as they say.
Going back to the AdWords question, Google ads and Facebook ads, I've heard of a few people who have done that. I think in Texas, Nasser Shuker made a big effort to use AdWords and Google ads. This is where you pay, you put in a bid and offer to pay X amount for a certain number of impressions, and you have certain keywords, and your ad will show up on the results pages of Google searches for those keywords. And I believe he says that he has had some success with that. He's using words like exercise and fun and just a number of words, not square dance, because that's probably not going to get you much. People searching for square dance are going to land on your pages anyway. But other words that might be related to what we're trying to sell. And I think it would be an interesting experiment to do that. It does cost some money to do that, and you have to outbid other people who are trying to advertise for the same search results. Facebook works similarly, although they will more likely, you can do those with more geolocation. So last year we advertised the folk festival that I'm involved with using Facebook. And you can limit it to people who have liked the folk festival page, and then their friends and friends of their friends. So you can go out, I think, 3 degrees of separation on that, and the ad will show up on those people's pages. I don't know how effective it was, because you didn't really have a way of tracking it. And that's another thing when you're talking about marketing, is how to track the results of what you're doing. Facebook did give charts about how many people clicked on the ads, but that still doesn't result in how many people actually came to the folk festival based on the ads. And of course, if you were running ads for a square dance class, you could then ask the people who showed up, how did you hear about us, and get those results. And I'm not aware of any large programs that have done that.
Of course, as Chris had mentioned, there's more tools than just the social media. She mentioned Google Docs. I love Google Docs. I use it for work all the time. Being able to have a word processing document or a spreadsheet, or in my particular line of work, Gantt charts for project management. And I can edit at the same time multiple other people are editing the same document. And the changes are all color-coded. So I can see what Greg is adding, even as I am editing in another section. Our texts are different colors. And all gets merged into the same document at the same time. We use Google Calendars a great deal among several of the clubs that I regularly call for. They are member-run clubs, so they've got a cycle of callers that go through. And sometimes it's very easy to lose track of who's supposed to be calling on one particular night among the 5 or 6 possible callers for that club. So we have a Google Calendar specifically for that club. So every Thursday is marked as who is calling, and it's shared to all of the callers so we can look in and see who's responsible, as well as our newsletter editors so they can promote on the Sunday newsletter who is calling that particular week. The Google Calendar is our definitive guide to who is calling at what particular time. That's for DC Lambda Squares and Chesapeake Squares in the greater DC area. Fabulous way for organizing people. As well, I can, if I, for some reason, I've lost my voice, I can't possibly call that particular Thursday, I can check to see who might be calling next Thursday and see about swapping gigs. Very useful tool. Love it to death. Skype we use on occasion because we occasionally have video calls between myself and various other callers just to chat and confer. No long distance charges. Yes, I love that word, free. Google Plus Hangouts. Speaking of Google Docs, Google Calendar, blah, blah, blah. There's Google Plus. That's another website similar they're similar to the style of Facebook. That's the nearest analogy I can give to you. But again, there's people who have accounts. They are posting photographs, movies, text, what they're doing right now, chronological order. You subscribe to their feeds. But they also have a little feature called a Hangout, where you can simply go into a group chat, invite whomever, or make it public. And you can either sit back and exchange text messages, or you press the particular button, and voila, it's video conferencing for free, up to 15 users at a time. I'm using that for work a great deal these days. Freeconferencecall.com, if you just need a conference call of 3 or 4 people to coordinate, say, callers come for our festival that's coming up in 2 weeks' time, and want to make sure that we've got the calendar all hammered out, and there's no problems at all with the assignments, the gigs and such. Get 4 or 5 callers together onto a conference call, read through, find out how things are. If there's a problem, you can nail it immediately, and with all of you online and not costing a penny, can make adjustments on the fly. Great system. Yeah, Scott in the back.
Two types of programs that I have used in the past with some success. One was a Skype lookalike called Tango, and the reason I got involved with that was because Tango seems to work internationally as well as nationally for free, which I'm with you on that. I like free. Free gift, all you can eat, those are my favorite words. The other one that I was thinking of just dropped out of my head. Ustream. Have you used Ustream? It's a video. You can take video. I've used it at several places that I've had where I've been able to broadcast a video over the internet in real time, and you can also go back and look at that video on Ustream. And again, it's free as well. So just something that people might want to think about.
Another tool I use is Evite. Usually it's used for parties, particular events. You can create a guest list. You make your personal account, create a guest list, and it personalize an emailed invitation to those people to promote your particular advice. There's a club in our area called the Zigzaggers. They're sort of an advanced light kind of club. Very, very sociable, very fun group. They were dwindling down to barely 1 square every other Friday. And then a lovely lady in our area named Marianne aggressively pursued using Evites to drum up dancers, to remind them, have Evite automatically remind them that their dance is coming up. And they are now regularly dancing 3 squares instead of 1. A club that was on the verge of death is now showing definite signs of life and growing. Once you set up the Evite, the invitations go out immediately. People can RSVP, yes, no, maybe. And then if they do not respond at all, the system will automatically send them a reminder, I think 72 or 48 hours prior to the event, saying, by the way, you haven't responded one way or the other. We can also tell if there is going to be enough dancers for a particular, say if it was a small intimate affair, like say just a personalized workshop to help one lapsed dancer get back up to speed, and we were just having a small workshop in our house, I can get RSVPs from a number of people, and if I don't have enough to make it viable that particular day, I know in advance. I don't have to corral everybody onto site and then find, oh, we're still missing 2, can't run it. Sorry, people, thanks for coming anyway. I can let them know in advance. And of course, with Evite, if the event has to be canceled for some reason, water main broke, the gym is not available, weather is bad, roads are impassable, don't go out, whatever. You can just send a quick event cancellation saying, nope, sorry, it's off for whatever reason, and that email is sent out directly. Again, because many of us are using the mobile phones. I find out about these things wherever I am. I've got my email in this thing. We have it linked to Twitter. I can even get text messages about it if there's been rapid changes.
On the other hand, some of my clubs, or clubs, the people check their email maybe once a day, so that would not be quite as useful as these things. So we're really, I see 2 things we're talking about here, and I said it earlier, was marketing or getting out information to people you already know who are already involved in the activity, and then getting information out to people who we want to get involved in the activity but who aren't already connected with it. Do you have ideas on how to do that, how to get that out?
Yes, we'd certainly like to hear your success stories.
Alan Riggs, Centennial, Colorado. I'm a member of another organization that just in the last 2-3 months has been talking about findability and thumbnomics. These are 2 books that have recently been out. Findability has been out for a number of years, and she just, the author, who I can't remember right at the moment, I'll look it up, but she has just published another book titled Thumbnomics, because she was at an airport and she was walking around trying to figure out a title for her new book on social media marketing, and she saw hundreds of people sitting, and they were all with multiple units, whether it's the iPhone or an iPad or their, I don't know what all they had, cell phones and stuff, and they're all sitting there using their thumbs to communicate. And so she wrote this wonderful book called Thumbnomics, and it talks about the findability also. How can you be found on all of this other social media? And a large percentage of that is the appropriate use of keywords. And if you type in Google keywords or just keywords into your Google search, it will take you to a site that you can type in words or phrases, and it will tell you how many people across the U.S. have typed in those words looking for information. So if you type in square dance, Washington, D.C., it'll tell you how many people in the last year or in the last month have typed in square dance, Washington, D.C., or, square dance lessons. She suggested 3 to 4 word phrases. And you should use those words in anything that you're writing, in the title, in the first paragraph, and the last paragraph, not scattered throughout the piece.
Selecting the right search words to use is a science in itself. The problem with using something like square dance lessons or square dance classes is that most of the people that I've been teaching the past couple of years didn't know they wanted square dance lessons or square dance classes, because they didn't know square dancing existed. They didn't know you needed lessons. And they never would have thought of those particular terms to search with. And so I tend to lard up my website and such with things like fun, social, outing, activities, family, singles, couples. I don't use exercise much because I don't actually believe people do a word search for exercise and think square dancing. I put in words like high energy, activity, and I'll use these in various combinations of phrases because when people are doing a search, at least for most of my dancers, my particular situation, yours may vary, they're not looking for square dancing unless they're already square dancers. If I'm looking for new dancers, potential recruits, they're looking for something fun to do on a weekend. So I am competing with river rafting, canoeing on the Shenandoah, scenic tours of the tidal basin of DC, and the local museums. So I've got to come up with something that will overlap but be distinct from those, which it's a tricky science to get. Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, a couple of other things that I've used with some success. One is a website called AppBar or AppsBar. It allows you to create your own app for your cell phones. It uses HTML5 and Wix is another one, W-I-X, which is very good. Allows you to create websites using HTML5, which transposes into using the iPhone as well as for other smartphones like Android. There was one other thing, and I can't think of what it was. In your website, one of the things that I found is you can use a meta tag using keywords and use all of these at the top of or in the head of your website and set your meta tags for crawlers, because what they'll do is they'll look like Google does some crawling, and what it'll do is it'll look in your meta tags, as well as you can set up a comment with all the same ones. And those things in your website are very, very handy.
Yes. Most of the website editor software, WordPress, for example, and others will have a field or an option where you can put in the search terms that you want for the meta tags. It is a science to select them. And it takes a bit of imagination. But, hey, experiment. It's one of these things, it's relatively new. I don't believe there's very many wrong answers. There's a whole lot of really good potential good answers. So experiment. Think about what it is you're trying to market, to whom, and why. And then decide your search terms from that. And again, you can have multiple websites for different purposes, different pages for each function. I would have a separate page for, say, party nights, as opposed to my regular C2 club. They're different audiences. If I'm creating a web page and I have updates about my regular calling gigs, that's not on the front page. It's down further because my regulars know where to find that. But I want my front page to be visible to those who are potential new recruits who don't know anything at all about square dancing. I want to grab them at the first glance rather than making them dig down to find out about party nights, one-night stands, classes, lessons, etc., etc.
Elliot Riggs again. These keywords are very important, but when you're first looking for what keywords to use, the Google keywords, you can type in sample words and they will show you a chart as to, which ones are used most often, that are actually out there, and which ones are searched for most often. And if you can find your best match, and you can also click on those words and find out where they go, you can see actually what's out there for the people that are looking for those terms and decide whether or not you want to be part of that.
Bless their heart, Google has made it so easy to do the research. It does take some time and some thoughtfulness on your part, but they've given you the tools. Bless them.
Abe Feldman, Washington, D.C. it seems to me that part of electronic marketing is, apart from the various tools that you can use, is using your own social network and getting yourself listed on websites of other organizations like community centers or neighborhood newspapers, that kind of thing, so that when people are looking for activities and things, they might go to a place that they're familiar with, and hopefully they would see your link to your website or your Facebook page. At Lambda Squares, we got people to our new class as a result of a listing at our local gay community center, and so there are many levels to the phrase social networking beyond Facebook.
Right. Have you ever searched for local calendars in your area? I know in Albuquerque there are a number. There's one done by the city, and there are a number of other ones. And if you're doing a party night or, some introductory sessions to try to get people into your lessons, those might be a great place to put a listing, calendar listings.
Yeah, your city or county rec centers, the Department of Recreation, your local free newspapers, your other local subscription newspapers. They all have event calendars. They also probably have one online.
Exactly. That's what I was really talking about, was online.
They're all there.
I know our local free distributed alternative newspaper, they don't print free classifieds, but they have free classifieds online. So free, our favorite word. Any place you can get the word out about your event that's open to the public online, that's a great thing to do.
One of the things, if you're just publicizing yourself and you want to get some additional, for my party dances, I use Gig Salad. And it's free to a certain point. And Gig Salad, I have gotten, in the last year, I've gotten up to about 12 party dances from Gig Salad. People just searching for someone to do square dance calling or something along that line.
Sweet.
Yeah, and it's free up to a certain point, and I just cheat. They say, if you want this many, how far are you willing to go? But I put in there, so there's always way. I think Betterfly is another one that's like that. Betterfly, I think it's called. But I found a lot of success with Gig Salad.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments from the floor? The obvious thing, of course, once you've got all this stuff set up and you've got a Twitter account, you've got an email account, you've got your web URL, get it out there. Still continue with your business cards, but make sure that you add these things to your business cards. And a great tip that I heard at the Rainmaker session that Eric Hanna and Ken Ratucci conducted yesterday. When you give out a business card, well, as they put it, never give out a business card. Always give out two. One for the person you're giving it to, and one for them to pass along to their next contact or friend. I thought that was brilliant advice. Why didn't I think of that 30 years ago?
We also ask that we have a business card that they can write their information on, and we get that one back, and then we have their contact information, and it's like the speaker yesterday, where she's collecting all that information, and then we send out a letter 2-3 times a year to them.
Compose a business card that lists an upcoming event, like a dance class, dance festival, whatever. List the time, dates, contact information, and a space on the back to fill in the dancer's contact information, so it can be either distributed as promotional material or handed back to you as contact info to build up your personal contact list. Compose all that online, send it off to 48hourprint.com, get 500, 5,000, whatever, a huge number of cards for a pittance, and the cards will be delivered to you within 72 hours. I love that service. They're wonderful. They do all my business cards. I get, I think, 500 cards at a time, and it costs me like $20. 48hourprint.com, or you can go to vistaprint.com. I believe they also offer that service. You could even check at your local Staples. They do business cards and signs and banners and so many other things.
if you don't make your own business cards, if you got a computer, you can do it. Microsoft Publisher or whatever, and Office Depot has like a pack of 1,000, cards in a regular sheet format for about $40.
Yeah.
So.
I found I like the print quality better from 48-hour print, but if I don't have time to wait for the cards to be shipped, I can generate new ones quickly by just getting the card stock from my local stationery supply store, like Office Depot, Staples, and such.
Ken Britt in Montgomery, Alabama. We also do business card size things to advertise at public events. So if we're going to have classes, for example, we're doing like First Saturday barn dances in Montgomery, and we printed up a bunch of business cards, saying what we're doing, open to the public, our web page, and we just hand these things out.
Yeah. They can be done as postcards, business cards. Just make sure that your contact information is on it. You can go really light on the details so that you can mass produce the cards very early on. And just as long as there's a web address at the bottom for where people can go for precise information, it's great. You can update your web page as more info comes in. So the card may list, www. Blah, 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 blah. You don't need then a physical address or the dance schedule or the list of callers, whatever. You can add that. But you can point them back to the website where you can update it as things come new.
How about using those square, I don't know the name of it, but like a barcode? The
QR codes.
QR codes, yes.
Yes.
They're great. I use them.
I had this great idea for a restaurant once that would involve QR codes. But I'll tell you that during the break. QR codes, for those not aware of them, they are a little square. They look like a bizarre postage stamp that has all kinds of little black speckles in it. And you're looking and going, what the heck is that? You've seen UPC barcodes on grocery items, right? It's just a series of stripes. This is the same basic idea. It's a graphic that can be decoded by a scanner into stuff. Well, UPC code decodes into a number. A QR code decodes into text. And depending on the size and the density, you can get anywhere from 40 characters. I think the maximum is like 4,096 characters, which is an insane number. Toyota created it a couple decades ago for their inventory management inside their factories. But I have a scanner for it in my mobile phone, so I can just snap a picture of it, and it decodes into a URL, which I can then follow to the website. It's really cute. Again, my grandmother probably would not know what to do with it, but I guarantee you my nieces and nephews know exactly what it is and what it can do.
Yeah, I'm seeing them more and more in advertising, print advertising. They're just all over the place once you start to look for them.
We've used it as a cute little PR gimmick. We'll just sometimes print out a QR code and just randomly slap it up on a wall and walk away. There's no text there to say what it is. There's nothing to indicate. Somebody has to walk up with their phone and scan it, and boom, it takes them directly over to our website, and then they go,
Two applications, if I may throw out, to create QR codes are QR Reader will allow you to create a QR code, and so will Red Laser. Both of them are very good. QR Reader is better to read the QR codes, and Red Laser actually creates them better. And you can email them to your home account, and then they come up as like a picture, and you can take that picture and put them on any advertisement. It's wonderful. We're putting them on all our flyers.
Or you could just go to Google and type in create QR code or QR code creation, and it'll take you to any number of websites that will generate them on the spot. It's just a simple graphic, then you cut and paste into whatever your document is. Brochures. I've seen them in really, really small form on business cards, and I thought that's completely unreadable. But no, my phone can still decode them. So, wow. Yeah, you can fit them on business cards, postcards, posters. You can have them online. My phone can actually read them off a computer monitor, so they can be part of your online presentation as well. I've used them on occasion for maps. You've got a flyer, such and such an event coming up, and then if you scan this code, it takes you to Google Maps, which shows you a driving route of how to get there. So I don't have to waste half of my flyer with driving instructions.
Right. Another free tool is Google Maps, and having links to, you should, why not on your website have a link to the address, and so that anybody can then immediately get directions on how to get to where they need to go.
Exactly. And usually when you follow that link, one of the buttons that Google will offer you is directions from where you are, or I forget the exact phrasing of it. So you click on that, and it'll look up, if you've got a mobile phone, it looks up your GPS coordinate, you are here, and then it plots your map of how to get there. Very useful if you're wondering, like, oh, crud, was it Freedom Hill Elementary, or was it supposed to be over at Oscar Hill Elementary? I've forgotten which one it is tonight. I've made that mistake more than once. Out the door and forgot exactly where I'm going. Anything else? Again, my name's Brian Jarvis.
And I'm Chris Jensen. Thank you, Brian, for doing this.
Thank you, Chris, for joining in. And, of course, if you've got any other questions that come up the rest of today, tomorrow, we're around. We're approachable. Feel free. Ask us, and we'll see if we can get you some answers. If we can't, we'll take down some email addresses, and we'll see if we can research. Thank you all for coming.